I haven't talked with them.
Sent him a text the other day and, I heard you're under the weather, for speedy recovery,
Yeah,
What's wrong?
His wife.
did he answer?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
A couple hours later, yeah. But that's fine. Hey, if you're napping or sleeping or something, when you're not feeling well, have a nice day.
Good evening. Danny, all right, maybe talk to you.
There were feelings involved in this.
Hi, Tom.
I can't make sense.
So Brian, how you doing?
Up to Candy Cane.
Busy day.
They were
Okay.
giving you goodies.
Oh.
God, this clock is still.
Megan making sure.
We're calling them now.
So we're never late.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're. Where did they go?
I know, they're like American.
And those are good. They work hard. Okay.
Mrs. Weber, how are you?
Hey, how are you doing?
Very good.
We're talking about Footmill Road. I don't think the family lives up there anymore. It's like I never go up and down that road anymore since they cut it off.
Yeah.
Everybody else knows.
Yeah.
They do, they cut through there.
Who's the family?
Lanigan's. I don't know if any of the family still owns the house. But it was pretty good sized property.
Yeah, there's 7 acres there.
It was owned by,
I'm a hillside, I don't like flat, that's my roots, I like that.
What's that?
Vinyl, golly, but they.
Because you stuff out all those posts alongside the road.
no,
Terrible.
oh, I don't think so.
The markers for their
Stuck
yards,
it with mine.
dangerous for you.
Oh,
No,
Plus half the roads missing. No,
you want me to hold up a second?
let's not start on that. Yeah, some of the Lanigan families are still there, part of the family.
That's a good name, Glenn.
Yeah, we used to go out there for family reunions, you know. it's a
Big
great
blueberries
place-
and stuff over there.
Great place to be. And, but I mean, it goes way back in the family, like three, 4 generations.
Way back to the Canuses. We're part of the Canis family right there.
Oh, really? No, I didn't know that. Well, that's interesting. Anyway. Do you have it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. I will call to order then this meeting of the Erie County Board of Elections, December 6th, 2022. At 4:33 approximately. And Ms. Slomsky, if you would conduct the roll call.
Mr. Bale.
Here.
Mr. Horton is absent. Mrs. Showerman.
Here.
Mr. Scatella.
Here.
Mr. Shank.
Here.
Mr. Winarski
Here.
and Chairwoman Rennie.
Here. Okay, well, next on the agenda is the hearing of the public. And it's 3 minutes per person. Do we have anybody online as well?
There are folks online. I'm not sure if anyone wants to speak. Anyone online want to speak? We just have 2 individuals, nothing else.
No, nobody's raising their hands.
No one with a hand raised.
Okay, all right. Well, then internally then, would any of the 3 of you,
you go start, you.
and just your name and where.
My name's Mark Sleppy. I live on 7337 Footmill Road. I'm a resident of Summit. I vote in the precinct that the votes were not counted. I'm 58 years old. I voted since 18. And my faith in the system, the voting system, is at the lowest it's ever been. The last few years, you lose faith, you hear stories. This is a bad mistake that was made. I'm here to voice my opinion. I'm glad you guys are hearing it. You know, you make a mistake, you get a speeding ticket. You plead guilty, you plead not guilty. Ms. Slomsky said she was guilty. She made a mistake. She's standing up for it. She needs to pay the price. You pay for a speeding ticket. It's not a bad mistake, but it's a mistake. You pay for it. I'm going to ask council to ask for your resignation. And then if she does not comply, that you vote her out. I mean, it's with her affiliation, political affiliations with the Wolf campaign. You know, she worked for the administration. She helped Fetterman in his election. And then she worked for Bizarros. So her affiliation politically makes it look bad. It smells bad that she's in this position to be biased, non-biased, and make good decisions. And I think it's compromised. So I'm asking you to take a good look at this and ask for her resignation in this matter. Anything? Before I sit down? Anything?
No one's able to respond to you, sir.
Yeah, we're really not supposed
That's
to.
not the process.
All right, thank you. Next.
Are you speaking?
No.
Oh,
Okay.
my name is Sue Weber and I live at 5338 Norris Drive, Mill Creek. For 8 years, when I was county controller, there were so many serious problems with that voter registration office. And I tried to audit the processes and procedures. And the people that were on county council then stonewalled me and wouldn't let me do it. My predecessor, Mary Shaw, as county controller, tried to do the same thing. And they wouldn't let her in there either. If I gave you the list of really serious mistakes I saw and expensive mistakes, this thing here just boggles my mind. I'm finally here to talk about it. When the polls close, all you do is take the book people sign and you balance it against the number of people who voted. How simple is that? How would you have an 1,800 vote district and be missing almost 500 votes and not notice that? That is so awful. It's just, I can't even go there, or my husband and I were just astounded something like that could happen. Who's in charge of that polling place? Who doesn't even know that simple procedure? And this man here, that he questioned why there weren't tapes posted for two machines, he questioned it and no one ever answered him. And now people are finding this out weeks later. And what if you were a person and you've all run for office and so have I, so you understand, what if you were a person and that 400 some votes made a difference and you had celebrated with your family and you were preparing for your new job as an elected official and you found out you didn't win? Yeah, it didn't happen, but it sure could have happened. Something's drastically wrong here. The whole office needs overhauled. If you ever want to talk to former Controller Schaaf and myself, we'll sit down with you and give you examples of things we saw that we just couldn't believe they were seriously wrong and something has to be done. Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else from the public who wishes to be heard?
Mr. Wertz has his hand raised.
Yeah, Jim Wertz, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Jim Wirtz, City of Erie. I would just like, in part, to respond to Mr. Sleppy, but also to acknowledge that while not ideal, this is an incident that has occurred in the past. During, I believe, since I've been following and involved in Erie politics, this is the third or fourth time that a machine has gotten counted after Election Day. This is not a partisan problem. This is an issue of human error. The process is, I think, a fine process that our election office uses. As I've said in this venue before, our election office is often regarded as the gold standard across the state, despite the occasional error that was corrected. No votes went uncounted. Those votes are now included in the vote totals, and no change to the outcomes of election occurred. So before we go throwing any partisan punches, at least twice before, under the previous leadership of the previous clerk, who is a Republican and now the director of administration for the Republican county executive, we experienced the same issue. And so while perhaps there are processes that could be reviewed and perhaps could be audited, this is not an uncommon error that occurs in these analog processes when you're moving a couple of hundred election machines on election night. So I stand behind this election board. I stand behind this election office, and I speak for a vast majority of the public who believes in the integrity of this office and the integrity of the elections here in Erie County. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to be heard? Anyone else from the public who wishes to be heard? Last call, anyone else from the public who wishes to be heard? Seeing and hearing none, we will move on to the next item on the agenda. Well, it's the recertification, but I believe we'll have a short report first.
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chairman. And just to confirm what we've been doing, since we discussed and discussed it individually with you on Thursday, once we just found out what had happened, reviewing the process. So as we were scanning the poll book, as we know, we scan each and every poll book for each and every precinct, for each and every voter. As we were scanning the poll book, had found out that there was an incorrect number. We had 699 votes we had thought in Summit 2. After scanning the poll book, we realized there was 1,184. When it was then brought to the attention saying something might not be right, as we discussed, came down to there was one of those memory cards for the machine, for the 2 scanners that are there. One scanner was recorded, one was not, as we discussed, Mr. Schenk. And as you discussed, you thought, hey, you know what, let's create a new part, like another safeguard for the system. So we did. So we purchased those containers that you had recommended. So when the memory cards come back at the end of the night, they are passed along to the team in the glass box. They are placed in their respective spot in that particular container. Then they are plugged into the system to retrieve the results. And then once they are finished, then they are going to be placed in the box on the side. So we have purchased those cases to be able to do so. We did talk, Mr. Bale, about like a checklist. We are having a checklist that is updated. So we're able to check and say, okay, Erie 1-1, they have 1 scanner. Summit 1, Summit 2, they have 2 scanners, making sure we have both memory cards plugged in at the end of the night. The thing for me, like we've discussed, and Mr. Sharon, you mentioned it yourself, we caught this internally. The processes are in place, the safeguards are there, the system worked. We corrected that and have adapted to make sure that everything is set. All 485 votes, have been cast. Each voter has received credit. We did confirm that in the system. So again, I apologize for what we had, experienced, but again, the system works. We caught this internally. Thankful for the team and the safeguards we have in place.
Any questions or comments from any of the board members?
I guess for me, and I understand that the process worked in the end, but I'm concerned that I, along with my colleagues, certified a vote where if all the processes had carried through to the end, how did we certify a vote when ultimately everything wasn't followed? So that's my question. If we found this because of the processes we have, why weren't those accomplished initially so that we never got to this point? We would have captured that and certified the vote correctly the first time.
That is the challenge with this archaic process we have with the actual, poll books that are, physical books, because we did begin this process approximately 2 days after Election Day. As you know, when everything came back in, the next day we're getting the provisionals ready, what have you, ready for final count Friday. But we should have been, we were scanning the books actively, then we stopped scanning the books to go through our 2% audit, then began scanning the books again. So that the issue is, in a perfect world, we should have had these books scanned in 2 days, but as you know, with a staff of 5 and everything we were working on, this is why it took so long. But yes, typically the process is after that first signing to wait the 5 days and then be able to sign. And sure, it may seem like it's rushed, but that's believing that all the processes are in place. But this final safeguard, is not complete until we finish scanning. So maybe going forward, if you want to wait till we're finished scanning, that's something we're able to do. I know we've talked about it, earlier in the year before my arrival, the electronic poll books. That's why those are so ideal, because you're 100% sure everything is set before you certify. And that's why most counties in the Commonwealth have those. So we do have an old archaic system, and there is room for human error, but that is the issue is, yes, we caught it on that final safeguard, but again, it was how many days later because the process takes so long.
Well, it was already certified. So in my mind, we shouldn't be certifying the vote until we have made sure that every process is followed through with 100%. That's where my dilemma lies.
Real quick. I know when I was back there and heard everything has to be hand scanned and beeped. We can't do and have it scanned like we scan everything else. Those things can't be scanned in. They have to be done one at a time like that.
to ensure accuracy and make sure, I mean, you know, in a perfect world, as she briefly discussed when we had a representative here with the electronic poll books, I mean, that's a simple, more plug and play on the electronic side. And, you know, there's, I mean, really no human error there whatsoever. But this is just again, the whole process of double checking, the tedious, you know, talking to the team. But wait a minute, did I scan something wrong? You got to go back and restart it. I mean, you would make sure those numbers are adding up, you know, together. So it is a process that we can't, it's a barcode system. Just with the barcode scanning gun that we have to do, just like when we receive the mail-in ballots, it's the same process. But yeah, in a perfect world, there has to be a better way, but this is the way to make sure, number one, it's accurate. And of course it is precise, scanning each individual signature for each individual precinct.
Okay. Good, thanks.
Anyone else who wishes to be heard? Board.
Councilman Winarski. Still on. Councilman Winarski, is there anything from you, sir?
No, I'm good. I'm driving, but I concur with Mr. Bale. Final vote should be after all counting has been completely resolved, and then do our final certification.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Talarico?
You could have the most sophisticated system around. You could have an electronic system that we haven't even seen yet in this world. But you will always have human error. You will always require human involvement, and you will always see human error. And what happened here was a mistake. The program and the returns were audited. Everything was done correctly. And then based on Julie's opinion, she recommended certification, which is what council decided, which is what the board decided to do, certify the vote based upon their best understanding of how the recount came back and how it went. Now, we could sit here now in hindsight and say, well, why didn't we delay even further? Why didn't we go over it a third time or a fourth time or a fifth time? But if this mistake is made, you can keep missing it and missing it. What's good about human nature, unlike machines, is that humans could correct their mistakes, which is what happened in this particular instance. But it's easy to say in hindsight that why did we certify? We certified prematurely. We should have waited until we did this or that. But we did this and that, but we made a mistake. Now, the certification is a process, as you know, is pretty much under the law, a rubber stamp. And when I was asked by Julie how to address this, you know, really, it wasn't, it's questionable under the law whether we even had to recertify. And that's because the mistake had no legal consequences, no legal significance. If it did, if it had affected it in that way, then we'd be in a different situation entirely. But no one was harmed. This gentleman was not harmed, nor was Ms. Weber harmed. So I recommended that the board recertify after Julie does an audit again to determine just how this happened, and then change the vote the way the vote should be. By certifying the vote, and this is no different than the dilemma that Vice President Pence faced. This is what the council, what the board is doing now is it's carrying out a ministerial act. It doesn't have any discretion to not certify. There's no alternative but to certify. But what it does do, at the very least, is if this gentleman it has some objection to what the election board did, he has a right to file an appeal to the Board of Common Pleas from our decision today. And so that gives him a legal remedy. And it gives Ms. Weber a legal remedy. She's always had a legal remedy. If she so chooses, and both of these people believe that there's been some kind of hanky-panky going on with the election board and that they do everything wrong, they have their day in court, just like everybody else, to prove it. So again, the only vote that's being taken here is whether to recertify the vote as corrected. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I will have something to say, but I'm going to say it after certification. I will now call for a motion to recertify the results from the 2022 general election.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Any other discussion? Roll call vote.
Mrs. Showerman. Mr. Scatella,
Yes.
Mr. Shank,
Yes.
Mr. Winarski,
Yes.
Mr. Bale,
Yes.
and Chairman Rennie.
Yes. Thank you. Really what I have to say is probably similar to what a lot of has been said. There's been nothing that I've ever done in my life as a manager, as an administrator, that hasn't had a certain level of human error. And we see that just with the number of ballots that get returned with people not following the directions, not out of any desire to cause a problem, but just it's human nature. Human beings make mistakes. The true measure of the integrity of a process is how it catches those mistakes and how it corrects them, or if there's a process in place for correcting them. Making a mistake is very different from committing a crime. And sometimes crimes are committed in ignorance. This was not any type of criminal intent. Certainly, if there was anything that was intentional, it would be something that we wouldn't have stopped and pointed out and revealed very transparently to the public. I think this is an affirmation, actually, of the process that we are willing to step up and we say a mistake was made. And it's not like we lost 400 votes, but it's one memory card didn't get uploaded as it should have been uploaded, and the process is in place for catching that. It does take time to get through all of this. This is a very different process than it was several years ago, and then even 10 or 20 years before that. We're working with paper ballots now. But I feel, I will say this, I feel a lot better about the integrity of just a person, an individual who can look at something that they've done and own up to a mistake rather than deny that anything was ever done. You look at what you've done, you identify a problem, you correct it, and you set in motion solutions so that it won't happen again. And that's exactly what is being done here today. That's what's been done. And I think it is an affirmation of the process. So we're not sweeping anything under the rug here. It's a tough job. It's a big job here. And we're here to do people's business. So thank you. I would also like to say before I entertain a motion to adjourn that the Board of Elections does have a bit more to do. You may remember, I would like to set up another meeting, so I want to throw that out there on your radar. At the beginning of the year, we had 2 items in place. One, we restricted funding for ballot sorting devices for the 2022 budget. And we also passed a resolution near the beginning of the year in support of retaining this was for the electronic poll books. And so I would like to bring that before the Board of Elections before the end of the year. So I would like to set up another meeting. I'm going to ask you to check your schedules. I don't mean we're going to do it right this moment, but we will be getting back to you on that. That's one thing. And I might add that these electronic poll books should be another safeguard in place that will help us with accuracy. Anything else for the good of the order?
Can we say anything else?
The public comment time is over, but afterwards, if you want to talk with any of us, you're welcome to. All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Okay, this meeting is hereby adjourned.
Brian, are you still paying Joe Maloney to examine the ballot and make sure it's right?
Say that again?
Are you guys still paying an accountant to look at the ballot, to proofread the ballot? At one point, Joe Maloney was hired to proofread the ballot because the ballot constantly had mistakes on it. Is he still